What is the definition of a good friendship? Calm down, Izzy. I'll explain it. Calm down. My emotional intelligence is so low, according to my mom. Oh my
We
god.
are such a hot mess. I love it.
All the time. Like, it's been a couple of months and we're still a hot mess. Welcome to the Milliseconds Apart podcast, where three online friends talk about whatever they want. So I'm Rudy. Today I'm your host. I'm a medical student and also a YouTuber.
I'm Izzy, a final year medical student at Cambridge.
And I'm Matt, a hot mess at the current moment, and I am deathly afraid of peas. Did I already use that intro before?
Peas?
You're
Why are you afraid of
allergic
peas?
to
Oh, I
peas,
guess I
right?
haven't. Because they're the... No, I'm allergic to peanuts. I'm deathly afraid of peas. Yeah, peas are the food of the devil. That is the one food I will never, ever, ever eat.
Wait,
Ever.
I actually watched a video
I'll
of
eat
yours.
grains.
Okay, you gotta give us.
Yeah, you had like a
Go
video.
ahead,
You're
Maria.
talking about how much you hate peas, right? I remember that video. It's like one of the
Yeah.
100 Days of Gratitude
Yeah.
diaries, right? Yeah, I remember that because I also commented
Yep,
on that
yeah,
video.
So I have a ranking.
Okay.
I think you... Yeah, I actually
Wow.
have a ranking of my least favorite foods in the world. So number 1 is peas because they're just the worst. Number
Okay.
2 is peanuts. Number 3 is corn because they're yellow peas. And number 4 is iceberg lettuce because I just don't get it. I don't get the hype. It's not
I
even
love
that
it.
good for you, and it tastes gross. So those are my top 4. Those are my
It's
top
the
4.
freshness.
I love iceberg lettuce.
Me
It's
too.
so crispy.
Yeah, crispy
It's
and
like-
fresh and
That like crunch.
yeah, exactly.
It
Yeah.
just doesn't do anything that well. It's like, you can just get a romaine. I feel like romaine has a nice amount of crunch with like a good flavor there. Spinach is just the go-to, but yeah. So
I don't really
those
like
are the foods.
spinach.
I'll eat most anything else.
Mm.
Okay,
Yeah.
I've got a question for you, Matt, though, before we dive into this
Yeah.
episode. Just give us a little more. Like, what's wrong with peas? Just tell us. Like, why do you hate them so much?
I mean, I think I think they scarred me whenever I was younger. Something must have happened because like I have like a visceral reaction to peas. And, like I eat a lot of stuff, right? Like I've eaten brain, right? I've eaten most body parts. Like I like all those sorts of things. There is something when I'm around peas that just makes me want to throw up. It just makes me feel so queasy. It is just the worst. Like if it's in my food, like no, thank you. It's like I'm getting uncomfortable right now. Like honestly thinking about peas, like it makes me like
Whoa.
actually.
Okay.
There's something there. So I think
Yeah.
something happened that's in my subconscious. Maybe I'll go to get that checked out one day where it's just so hidden. But yeah, I actually sorry, I'm rambling now, but I had a situation where one of my buddies, as a prank, it was the worst prank ever. So I left a book at his house and he shipped it back to me. And I was like, why is this like kind of punctured? Why does this thing smell? He mailed the thing with peas that he poured frozen. So by the time it got to me, it was like rotten and it was gross. And it was just peas just sitting there. Oh my gosh. And I think that just made it worse.
Oh.
What a
So-
great friend.
Yeah, we're no longer friends.
you
That's
rotten-
actually
Oh.
true. That's actually true. We're no longer friends.
Red flags.
Yeah. Well, speaking of friendship, that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So,
Take it away, Rory.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about friendships quite a lot these days because both of you guys know why, but the audience, they don't know. So my non-honest YouTube version answer is I moved to a new place and I'm about to make a lot of friends. So I've been thinking about friendships quite a lot because I don't really have friends right now. I only have one and she's my classmate. So I was thinking, what is the definition of a good friendship other than people who you can grow with, blah blah blah, yeah, other than growth mindset? What is a good definition of friendship? What do you guys think?
Meaning, how do we define a good friend for our lives? Like, what
Yeah.
would we call a good friend?
Yeah. And also like a good friend, and also when would you think that, oh, this friendship is good for me or bad for me, or like vice versa?
Yeah, I think a good friendship is where two people can really enrich each other's lives in some way and really get on and click and connect in some way. And there's that element of it. And there's also the element of actually putting in the time to build up that relationship and build up that friendship. So I feel like it's almost, there's two things going on here. Firstly, like the underlying chemistry or match you have as friends in terms of what you're interested in, your things you're passionate about, just your personalities. And then also there's actually the time that you've spent together. So for example, if you go to school or at uni with someone, it's quite easy to like get those hours in and just hang out with them at break times or lunch times. But if you don't have that common ground, then you need to kind of you need to make that space to spend that time together and build the friendship. So I think that's what makes a good friendship.
What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I think the idea, the idea of friendship and even the concept of what makes a friend, something I find super fascinating about that is how that changes culturally, where there's some cultures that are very free with the word friend and what it means, and it can be very superficial or it can be extremely deep, whereas there's other cultures where a friend, like there's very few people that you would actually call your friend because it takes a lot of depth, right, to be able to know and have that understanding. For me personally, I think this is me being Filipino and me being American. Like I have a very low bar for what I would consider a friend, where and I would call most anybody my friend, and so there's that casual bit of like, hey, my friend, blah 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 blah. But even whenever it comes to like, how would I define somebody that I would call a good friend? I have an extremely low bar. It's, can we talk about more vulnerable things? Can we talk about things that are below the surface? And if that is the case, I'll consider that person a good friend. And I really believe that that can be possible with most everybody, because I think that the vast majority of people in the world are craving that. And it's just a matter of giving those people the shot. I think that there's these ideas that we sometimes have of, oh, you have to know somebody for this period of time, or you have to, spend the time to get to, you have to talk about those surface level things before you can dive deeper. But I don't buy that, because I think that even in your first interaction with somebody, you can go talk about those things that start mattering. And if you do, in my opinion, that's somebody I would call a friend.
Yeah, I completely agree that actually diving deep straight off the bat, actually people are often very receptive to that. And it's something that I've been doing a little bit more this year. And I think maybe after lockdowns and all of this stuff and all of these shifts in our social structures, when I just sit down with someone new who I haven't met before in the college hall, I'll just start chatting to them and I'll go for it. I'll share something a bit vulnerable, see if they engage with that. And if they do, then there's a deeper connection there that feels more meaningful. And equally, I do know what you mean, Matt. There are some friends who I have spent a lot of physical hours with them, but not really ever scratched beyond the surface, or gone beyond scratching the surface rather. And it doesn't feel as meaningful in some way. We haven't really understood each other or connected on anything more vulnerable or more real, or what keeps us up at night or what we're dreaming about. And I think there is that element there as well. So maybe I should modify my equation of, you need the underlying chemistry, you need some time, but also you need that depth as well. And those three things kind of come together. So yeah, updating the model.
What do you guys mean
what do you think,
by
Rory?
going?
What's the...
For me, friendships, a good friendship. I personally don't know, because as you said, man, I think my bar for like friendship is super low too, because of my Turkish genes. In Japan, you wouldn't call your classmates a friend if they're not a really good friend of yours. You will call them a classmate. And that's something my mom doesn't understand, because whenever I'm talking about, oh yeah, she's my friend, and she's like, have you ever like talked and engaged with her or him? And I'm like, no, but like, she's my friend. And she's like, no, she's not your friend. This is not a friendship. This is, you just know them. It doesn't mean that it's a friendship. So I've been thinking about it quite a lot. And I think for me, since I have YouTube, and since I have this like, not like a persona, but a public myself that I can, I don't know, since I want to become a doctor, I need some sort of a respect in my career. So I don't really say everything to everyone on YouTube. So for me, friendship is someone that I can talk whatever I want about my offensive opinions as well, and not being worried about, them sharing online or something. And I have a lot of controversial...
Like on this podcast.
Yeah, like on this podcast. Exactly. I think I just have to... I think I have like so many controversial opinions that I hide from most of the people. So yeah, someone that I can share these stuff. But when talking about, going deep and deep diving, what do you guys consider, like, which topics do you guys consider going deep and being vulnerable?
I think that there's a range with it where, like, because
Okay.
deep starts anywhere below what's going on in the day to day, what's the weather like, what are these events. So whenever we stop talking about the what of, like, where you can kind of just state facts or you can state things that you can observe, anything below that where you start asking the first question why, or sometimes even how, but mostly it's why. That to me is where you start going deeper. And obviously it can go, like, you can go so deep where you get to know, like, hey, what is the who has hurt you most in your life, or like what do you struggle with most, like you can get to those. But the part of, like, reaching that depth is just whenever you break through the, oh my gosh, the weather is this outside today, or did you catch that event, or did you see what's going on? And we can take each of those and go a little deeper. But I think it's the more I've kind of interacted with people in the professional world, the more that I see people get stuck in this trap where you don't even reach, like, I don't consider, the first why of, why do you have this job? I don't know, take that as an example. Or like, why do you do whatever you do? Like, those aren't super deep, but it's more so than what many people are able to communicate with on a regular basis. And so with that, this idea too of that depth, and like I really equate this idea of, okay, for the longest time I used to think that a good friendship, I needed to know about their history, I needed to know so much about their lives, I needed to see them through different seasons. But I think that I've been changing that mindset where, because the reality is, like, us three, we don't know that much about each other's past, right? What we
Yeah.
do know is we know a lot about each other's present, which to me is the more important thing, where it's like, yeah, you can find out all those things later on in the past, and those kind of help inform who they are right now. But right now, like, we can go into certain topics of who are you at this moment. And frankly, I don't really care who you were 10 years ago, right? I don't care about the skeletons that were in the closet. I don't care about the growth that had to happen since then. I just care about who you are at this present moment. That was a very convoluted answer. So Izzy, take it away.
Yeah, I think this whole idea of going deep maybe is a bit more, like you said, going beyond just talking about the weather or the people that are around you. Maybe talking more about ideas, opinions, worldviews, dreams, things like that, that almost have more layers of thought. It's rather than just looking at the world at face value and talking about just the facts of the world. It's talking about what could be, what might be, things that you kind of synthesize and you have some kind of realization about it. So it's almost like going beyond the first level of talking about things is talking about the facts. The second level, going deeper, maybe I should go, the second level, going deeper, is synthesizing that in some way and thinking of what could be. So I'd say that's probably what maybe constitutes a deep conversation, but it's quite a broad question. I feel like I'm sure one of you two is going to bring up something that doesn't fall within that, which I would still call a deep conversation. What do you think, Ruri? This whole, what you mentioned about your mum questioning you on you calling classmates friends, like, what's that kind of bar of talking to someone to the point where you can call them a friend? What is that?
I think like what she was trying to say is that whether you're like being able to vulnerable with them, share your weaknesses, because maybe it's our family thing, but we don't really show our weaknesses to other people. We really like to hide them. Maybe it's my Japanese family side, I don't know, maybe it's not a Japanese thing even, but I think in Japanese society, people really think about what other people think about themselves. Oh, that's a very random sentence. Wait. What people wait? How can I even build this sentence? What
Yeah,
other
like the
things
people are very, like, cognizant of what others are thinking of them.
exactly?
Yeah, they like worry a lot about what others think about them. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
The lag.
Words.
Yeah. Take it away, Ruri. Go for it.
Yeah, exactly. So even like during the COVID time, you would hide if you're positive, you would hide it because it means that you're spreading COVID to other people. How dare you? So this is kind of like a Japanese society way of thinking. So people are really conscious about themselves, what they do, what they say. So if you are able to vulnerable with someone else in Japanese community, I think that's a huge thing. And that's like some sort of scale, whether you call a person a friend or not.
What do you both consider being vulnerable?
I feel like there's maybe two levels to this, for me at least. I think the first level of being vulnerable is maybe sharing feelings or emotions or fears that you wouldn't necessarily very comfortably want to broadcast to everybody, but you're willing to talk about with most people. So talking about times that I know I was very stressed out by exams, or things that made me sad, or things that hurt me. That's level one. But I feel like level two of vulnerability is maybe sharing things with people that could actually hurt you if they got out, if that makes sense. So
Hurt you in
things
what
that
sense?
either financially, socially, even just like emotionally, if somebody broadcast that in some way, you would be hurt in some capacity.
Okay.
And I think sharing that is giving a piece of genuine vulnerability to somebody, because they could use that to hurt you if they decided to. And so by giving that to them, it's almost putting that trust in them that they wouldn't do that to you. And I think those two levels, I think level one is very easy to do, just sharing things that you're worried about, or like etc. But level two is a kind of vulnerability that I think is actually more rare these days. People don't often share that, and that's very understandable, because being level two vulnerable is a scary place to be. But I guess then that begs the question of, can you turn those vulnerabilities into level one vulnerabilities? Can you change those things that you think would hurt you into things that wouldn't hurt you? But I don't know. What do you think? What do you guys think?
Well, that's what
What's
I was gonna.
vulnerability?
That's what I was gonna say. Like with those kind of levels, like those are even subjective in there, right? Because what we perceive may hurt us. Like I was really trying to think. I was like, what would be something that I would share with somebody where I would be hurt from it? And because the idea of being hurt, I think we control so much of that, right? Like I think that maybe it's as we grow. I'm trying to get this into like a coherent sentence, but this idea of what would I share with somebody where I would be hurt if they shared it with others. Because my aim is that there's nothing that I would be like to live my life in a way that there's nothing that I would not be willing to share with a stranger, because like that level of transparency, or like being that comfortable with myself, where there's literally nothing, like I could share every part of my life, but nobody can hurt me because I just know that that's authentically me. And so I think that idea even of like what makes us vulnerable, because I know sometimes I'll have conversations where I'll share something that I don't think is vulnerable. I just think it's like, hey, by the way, this is just what I've been thinking. This is who I am, all this stuff. And somebody will say like, oh, wow, like that's very vulnerable. I'm like, oh, is it? Right? Because that's that subjective bit within us of something that's vulnerable to one person is just, nope, this is just like the obvious thing that say I'll share with literally anybody. So like that idea of how that changes based on like our own lives and how we even grow over time with that.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I guess those people who are sort of saying like, oh my gosh, that's very vulnerable, they would put that in a kind of level two vulnerability maybe. And they would feel hurt if that kind of thing about them were shared. But yeah, do you think that's like an internal work? Is that like a mindset shift, or is it a circumstance that you're in? Because I feel like everyone has their own context. Some people may have, for example, medical conditions, or maybe skeletons in the closet in terms of like their family and or things like that. So everyone has their own context and their own set of things to work with. So how much of that is purely mindset, and how much of that is also almost like the luck of the hand that we've been dealt, and how easy it is to be honest about our lives because our lives are more pure or clean or lucky or like privileged in some way. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
What do you think, Rory?
I think, like, for me, because, like, both of the cultures that I'm in are pretty different, I can say, for me at least, majority of the part is cultural. Because in Japan, there's so many ways that you can get hurt once you become vulnerable, and if they find out, they can use it in so many ways, because Japan is a very, like, society-oriented country. And even like in job applications, university applications, or every single area of your life, what other people think about you is really important, extremely important. So being vulnerable is really hard because there are also people who want to hurt you and use it, and they can use it easily in Japan, and they can literally hurt you financially, emotionally, I don't know, in like a society. So in Japan, I wouldn't be vulnerable with people. Like, I would never ever tell some of my family issues to my Japanese friends, probably. But in Turkey, I can tell it easily because they wouldn't do anything and it wouldn't affect me in a Turkish community. Like, nothing will happen to me, so I can be vulnerable. And my scale of vulnerability in Turkey versus Japan is really different from each other. So for me, it's more culturally rather than a mindset.
Yeah. Oh, I love this perspective that you bring, Rui, because I feel like your experience in both cultures kind of brings out a lot of these questions that I often have about how much of it's cultural, how much of it's mindset, how much of it is personal, like individual context. And it's really interesting that you feel like a different scale of vulnerability in the two different cultures.
Well, and I think that that's where I enjoy about our conversations in general, right? We're bringing these different perspectives because whenever I first heard your question, there is like my initial thought was it's almost, in my opinion, it's almost all internal, where what like we get to determine what hurts us, right? And maybe that's more from an emotional sense, but maybe even culturally, I can't think of, I share something that's going on with my family. It's like, I mean, how is that gonna hurt me in the professional life? Like, it's not gonna hurt me in the professional life of somebody saying, oh, he's dealing with this, therefore he's not going to get this raise or he's not going to get this promotion or whatever. But maybe that is right to your point there, Ruri. It is different in different countries where those sorts of things you're able to say discriminate against somebody for, you're able to potentially harm them because but just based on, I know the circumstances here, mine in the States, and obviously it's all anecdotal because we can only speak from our personal experience. Like, somebody can only hurt me emotionally if I allow them to, right? Anything that we share, it's kind of that thing of, oh, if I get made fun of for a certain thing, like, it's my decision if I'm going to feel offended or not. It's my decision if I'm going to feel hurt, right? Any other parts that we share there. But I had never thought about that cultural component being a culture that is so society driven, because I think in the States in general, maybe a lot of countries in the West, it is a very individualistic one where yes, like, you want to contribute to society, but not anywhere close to where like your standing is going to matter as much. Like, your standing is more so based on your personal achievements and such.
Yeah, I guess that difference there that you highlighted between the more individualistic sort of each individual is responsible for their own actions versus the kind of family or like family reputation, family pride sort of thing, which maybe was more prevalent in perhaps Asian cultures. That's quite interesting. And I wonder how those sorts of cultures, how they each develop and which one is a good way to lean towards. Like, is it I assume there's too far on either end of the spectrum. There's probably too far towards individualism and there's too far towards judging people based on their family. But I wonder where that middle ground is. That would be quite interesting to think about.
Yeah, I wanted to another thing is kind of bringing it back to the part about the idea, I know that Ruri brought up before about friendships and classmates. Maybe it's partly the language, right, that has to do with it. What are the connotations of the word friend in, say, Japanese, in Turkish, is if you want to talk about, if you know the context in Mandarin, like what is the thought that you have when you say friend, right? Is it a real depth to it? Is there like a certain, like, are there certain characteristics that you automatically associate with that word, and kind of how does it change language to language? Does that question make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, yeah. I'm not sure if I understand Mandarin enough to really speak about it. My perception as a Mandarin learner, still only like intermediate level, I'd say, is that the word friend, 朋友, in Mandarin, you can kind of use it fairly freely, and it's not only reserved for like very, very good friends. That's the sort of impression that I get, but obviously... I don't know, we'd need to speak to an actual native speaker to get their take on it, because I guess a lot of it's culturally embedded as well. Maybe different regions may have different ways of talking about it, even different sort of, within different regions, even different kind of groups of friends or different groups of people may have different ways of talking about it.
Yeah. What about from a British perspective, like of the word friend in English?
I think classically, so if you talk to like more the older generation, friend is a little bit more of the kind of good friend sort of vibe. But I feel like more in our generation, people can just say friends fairly easily. Maybe not for just an acquaintance, like purely an acquaintance, but almost an acquaintance who you've had a conversation with that lasted for more than like 30 seconds. You could probably call them a friend. But obviously within just the word friend, there's so much on that scale. It's a huge scale. So it almost becomes meaningless. Like the word almost becomes meaningless because it's so easily used.
And I think that we also, and this is how we use it here, I'm assuming it's the similar thing there, is when you want to go like deeper with the word friend, you use different adjectives to describe it. This is a good friend. This is one of my best friends. This is a so-and-so, right? Using that as opposed to friend really meaning anything, right? So friend is kind of this blank palette that you can then assign these different.
May I add something interesting to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
In Japanese, I actually remembered we have 5 different ways to, explain who that person is. Like in like friendship scale, we have like 5 different categories. So starting from the bottom, it's called tanin. Basically, it means like other person, and you would write that in Chinese characters like other person. And then the next one is chijin, someone you know. So you're not necessarily a friend, but it's just like somebody that basically you know. And then the third scale is a friend. It's basically like a friend. And then the second one is it's like more intimate, but it's not your best friend, but it's more than a friend, maybe more than a classmate or something.
Yeah.
And then the top of the scale, there is like a best friend. So we actually have like 5 different words to describe them. I just realized it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So like it will be different. And all of these Chinese characters are different too. So by looking at them, actually you can understand how, I don't know, important that friendship is.
Yeah, in English you kind of say, oh, they're like a friend, almost meaning acquaintance almost. And then it's like good friend or best friend, all of this stuff. But even the word best friend, so something I've been seeing on maybe Instagram or something like that, like these influencers on Instagram posting captions or whatever, they'll often like refer to the reader, basically their followers, as best friend, like one word, best friend. Like, have you seen, or like bestie, like bestie, something like
like
besties,
that.
Yeah, or like when they're replying to, let's say, a story question, they're like bestie, comma, something, almost like saying girl, something, and this is just, I understand why it's a thing, but to me it's like almost surprising. It's like, well, then who is your best friend? Like, this is literally a follower that you don't know. Like, then how do you express?
Can I say something?
Yeah. Oh no.
I did it before.
Yeah, so Izzy was actually talking about a post that she saw of yours, Ruri. That's exactly how.
Oh yeah.
So we're glad that you picked up on that.
Yeah. So to the listeners, if you follow Ruri, then you're her best friend. You should follow Ruri on Instagram. Or leave the link below, and then you can be her bestie.
Yeah.
But see, I think.
So, can I explain it?
Yeah. Explain yourself, Ruri. Explain yourself.
Yeah. Actually, I do want to understand it because to me it's like
okay.
Almost like what is, how do you call your actual best friend then? Is it still best friend, or is it like best friend? Like, yeah, I'd love to.
Calm down, Izzy. I'll explain it. Calm down. Don't come for me. I'm gonna explain it. Okay. So
I'm sorry. I'm not coming. So this is a peaceful conversation with no judgment. But explain yourself.
Okay. So when I call my followers bestie, it's not because they're my best friend. So there are like different reasons behind of that. First thing first, I don't know how they refer those people, because most of them, their username is not their name. So they have like a really random name, and I cannot say girl or boy because I don't know. I literally don't know. So I would say something wouldn't necessarily identify a gender. So it's gonna be like a bestie, but at the same time, I wanna show my love towards them because they support me financially. Like, how can I not love them? So I would love to show my love and appreciation towards them. Not only from like the financial way, but I want to show my support. I don't know how to refer them. And the third thing is because I think on Instagram, I wouldn't say it on YouTube, but on Instagram, I think it's more close, like the relationship is more close compared to YouTube, because on YouTube I have like 400-ish, not 400, 360k-ish followers, versus on Instagram I have like 49k. So I want to show my appreciation those people who followed me on this smaller platform. So I want to differentiate people from YouTube versus Instagram. And I wouldn't say to my every follower bestie, but someone maybe that responded, I don't know, something good, or maybe asked something that is important on my Q&As or something. But most of the time, it's just because I don't know how to refer those people. That's why, not because I feel they're my besties.
Yeah.
And also, from marketing perspective, when they feel they're like more connected to you in like a smaller platform, then they would value that platform, right? Because since I don't say it on YouTube, but I only say it on Instagram, then that makes difference between these platforms. It's like treating a business class, client better than economy class client. You know what I mean? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's in that perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, that does make more sense actually, especially the thing of like not knowing whether like using a gender neutral term that still expresses affection and is sort of, I guess another thing maybe, would you agree with this? Would you also say that it's a thing that's done on Instagram so it feels normal on the platform? Do you think that's another thing
definitely.
that's also...
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, because I feel like it is something I have seen quite a bit, the kind of bestie or best friend like with no space, is like best friend all in one. Yeah, on Instagram specifically, but not on YouTube, not anywhere else for some reason, not on Twitter.
This is such an interesting point because Ruri's just feisty on Twitter. She's calling nobody her bestie on Twitter. Ruri's picking fights on Twitter, so there's no bestie.
I am no.
But this idea of friend meaning such different things, even the idea of best friend, where that can mean different things to different people. What I just thought about is that could even potentially cause misunderstandings in how people interpret their friendships, where for some people, maybe it depends on culture, maybe it just depends on your personal experience or your interpretation. If somebody is called like, oh my gosh, like you're my best friend, somebody may really take that to heart. But I think that there's an interesting thing with friendships, and I'd be curious for both of you and your experiences. Do you feel as though with almost all of your friends, you look at them in the same context and their same closeness as they view you? Like, do you feel as though the friends that you consider like your closest friends, do they also consider you their closest friend, right? Or is there a mismatch in that?
Yeah.
Actually, it's a topic that I always thought like during the high school, and not only about friendships, but also like not only the platonic ones, also in romantic relationships. I always think about it, like, do they love me as much as I love them? And I don't know, I can never know it. But with only one of my friend, who I call my bestie or best friend, not my followers, my actual best friend. She's the only person that I'm 99% sure that she loves me as much as I love her. And that's why she's my best friend. I think she's the only one that I can have like no doubts about her love towards me and her appreciations towards me.
Oh, that's so
I think
sweet.
She's the only one.
But
But the weird thing,
Oh, I was just going to say, but why can't it be that way with every friend? Where like maybe it's not that they're going to be as close, right, per se, but you have the understanding of, one of my closest friends, I was actually staying with him and his wife. They're the ones that I married. So he thinks about his friends in tiers of, okay, so it's this tier of friend where it's like, these are my 5 closest people, and then the next 5, the next 10, whatever. And like kind of having that understanding. And it's like, it's okay if somebody is, say, in the 3rd tier, But if you're equally on the third tier, right, for us to be able to just be transparent about that, right, what would it take for us to be able to do it? Because I think it's easy with like our best friends where, and I don't know about you, as I'm with you, Ruri, I have one person, like she is my best friend and I know I am her best friend, right? Like that
Yeah,
is
exactly.
like well known. But, and so it's easier whenever it's the actual closest person to you. But whenever it's everybody else, maybe we don't have the exact thing. It's like, hey, you're my number 5 friend. I'm your number 5 friend. But maybe we don't know that exactly. But can't we get to the point where we at least have the general idea? Like, okay, this is going to be somebody standing at my wedding. I'm going to stand at their wedding too. Or we're on the same page kind of in those tiers. You guys know what I'm saying there?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I guess there's that. It's like almost this idea of like, you know, the almost like a target, like a bullseye of like friends who are like in the middle and then like outwards and outwards and outwards, moving out, expanding that circle. Although I guess for me, it's not something I really think about that much anymore. I think when I was at school, I used to think about it a lot. But nowadays, I don't worry about it because it's like, you know what? As long as I enjoy the friendship, then does it matter how highly they rate me on their scale or whether there's that almost equality or parity across that friendship? Like if I feel like we're both treating each other fairly, we both love each other and we both like hanging out together, or just have a great time chatting and support each other and cheer each other on, then almost I don't worry about spending extra mental energy trying to figure out if I'm number N on their list. I don't really worry about it anymore. And I think it's something that I used to worry about a lot and I used to spend a lot of mental energy on at school. But actually it doesn't really change anything as long as, I don't know, does it change anything?
No.
Yeah,
So
what do you guys think? Does it change anything?
I don't think it changed anything for me, and I think I don't spend as much time thinking about am I, say, in their closest group. I spend a lot of time thinking are they in my closest group for the reason being I want to make sure that they know how much I love them. Like that's like my context where I like the people that I actually like I'm closest to, I want them to have no doubt in their mind how I feel. And so that's where you know I personally spend the time. And I have like my close group in different contexts even, right? Because I think even as we go on in life, like in different contexts, we have different, call it tiers, right? Where I can't necessarily compare the friendship that I have with the two of you to say like my college friends because they're built in such different like circumstances. And I don't compare them in that way. But I just want to make sure that everybody that I consider like the top tier, like the closest people, the ones that I care most about, I don't care. I'm kind of with you as I don't care if I'm in their top group. I think that I am. All I care about is to make sure that there's absolutely no doubt in their mind exactly like what I appreciate, exactly how I love them, exactly like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think that's all we can control, right? I think it kind of goes to that idea of we can't control how other people are going to view us or how other people are going to quote unquote rank us, but we can control like the love that we share and like making sure that they have no doubts about that. And what I found in my friendships, like I almost never end, like every time that I leave now, even if it's off a call, I tell my friends, hey, I love you, right? Those sorts of things. And it's that sort of thing where I've realized, wow, people also mirror that. Where at first maybe it's a little weird. People are like, why are you telling me this? But then like people start mirroring it, right? And saying that as well. And I don't know, I feel a lot of peace in that because there's never any doubt about this feeling of, wow, where do we stand? Like, do they like me? Like, do we have this thing? Like, let's just share that.
Yeah, actually, Matt, you influenced me in a really good way because you would like call me really randomly and we would chat about something and you would say that you love me and I would say it too, probably. I don't really remember, but you really influenced me in a good way because I started to do it to my other friends too. And my emotional intelligence is so low, according to my mom. According to my mom. I don't think so. I'm working on it. So I'm not really good at showing my love towards people.
Roasted by your mum.
Roasted by my mom every day. She's like, even though you have IQ, you don't have EQ. So that's bad. But anyway, so you influenced me in such a good way that I started to tell my friends that I love them. And exactly, like they start to mirror it and they start to tell me that they love me too. And sometimes I would like test one of my friends if they really love me, because like if they're gonna say it or not. And they say it, and it makes me really, really happy. And I feel like I'm like more connected towards them, and I start to appreciate the friendship more. And if they're like thinking that is weird and they're not saying me back, then I'm not gonna say it again.
Wow.
I'll give you 3 chances. I'll give you 3 chances. If you're not saying it, we're not doing
3 strikes,
it
you're out.
Exactly. But yeah, I think we should show our love more.
No, I agree. And I think that it's, even the idea of love, I think love has a similar conundrum as friend, where what does it mean? Because we tell a lot of people that we love them, but it's like kind of having to go deeper. This kind of goes back to the conversation we had during our gratitude episode, where we were expressing exactly what we appreciate about each other, because then like the word friend, the word love, like those things by themselves can be interpreted in completely different ways. So I think that in order to be able to have that understanding and maybe even deepen those friendships, using more words is actually okay in that context, right? Because it helps us understand, like, what does love mean, right? If I say like, hey, I love you, well, in a romantic sense, that means something different. In a platonic sense, it means something different. But then it's like, how do we really interpret that, right? Like, what do we really mean by that? And I think even it takes a while to be able to even understand, like, whenever you say, I love you to a friend, what are we trying to convey to them, right? What are we trying to make sure that they know? And that word itself, it's like, there's so many different ways that it can be used, right? It can be like, hey, love ya. Like, and that could even be used in the same way as bestie, where you can say that online. It's like, hey, I love all of you guys. But that love, right, is a way different meaning than a love to a parent or love to a friend that you've known for a while. And I don't know. These words are confusing. Words are words.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a devil's advocate argument for you guys. This is not necessarily actually what I believe, but lots of these words, almost they're used when they're not really meant, like not really in their full extent. So like the word best friend or the phrase I love you, it's not necessarily 100% meant. And does that cheapen the words? Does it mean that those words, they lose their meaning entirely, and then that almost flattens our range of expression with the English language? And so then is it almost this like cheapening of these phrases that should really be reserved for when you really, really mean it? Like, how do you show that you really, really mean it then?
I think like my actions really show it, because if I don't like somebody else, I will show it. Like, you will know that I don't like you, and I would 100% make sure that you know it. 100%.
Maybe this is why your mum makes those comments about you.
Now Izzy's roasting you too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my god.
No, I'm sorry. Don't kill me.
Love it.
Don't whip my ass.
No, I think that's a really good question there is. I think it's a really good question. And so let's just take those two words, the two like like best friend or friend, and then love. So I think that with love, the first thing that comes to mind is like, because I always tell people like, hey, I'm sending you tons of love, right? Instead, and I think that's how I use love with people, that I don't say, hey, love. Like whenever I tell a person, hey, I love you, that's a friend. That's like a really close friend. That's a family member. That's something there where like, I don't really tell strangers like, hey, I love you, right? It's more like, hey, I'm sending you lots of love, because that to me is kind of this action. It's like sending good energy at all those sorts of things. So I don't think it cheapens it in that way, because I think that we can we can send love to complete strangers. We can send love to our enemies, right? Like truly there. But with the friend one, I think that it does cheapen it. And I think it's already too far gone where it is cheapened, that now we have to add on these extra words to be able to make it mean anything at all. And we have to also back it up with our actions and more understanding, because I mean, think about even going to a market in different countries, like, hey, my friend, come over here, right? Like, come see this. Or right, we call strangers like, hey, my friend, like, relax, right? Even if it's a complete stranger. So I think it is cheapened in that way, which is, I guess, unfortunate, because then we have to come up with more words. And maybe it's just about being more mindful about those other things where when do we actually want to use it and make it matter?
So in, I think, Turkish culture, we would call, I mean, I at least do it, call people like my life, even though that person is not even my close friend. I would call them my life, my honey, my love, and that is just like a common words that we use in Turkish culture to refer to like other person. But in Japan, you would not do it, like not at all. You wouldn't say you love the other person or you appreciate that person. You wouldn't show it with your words, and people would show with their actions. And when I say like people or to my friends that I love them and things, they're like really happy about it, and they say that, oh my god, yes, you're a foreigner, you grew up outside of Japan. It really shows. Like they never say it. So in that sense, when Japanese person tells me that they love me, that's probably true, and it comes from their heart. So I think in that sense, I wouldn't believe like Turkish person saying that they love me. It's probably something more casual, like, yeah, I love you too. I would respond like that. But if Japanese person says that, I will take that seriously. So I do think that it cheapens these words. But anyways, our audience, what do you guys think about it? Like, what's your culture like? Is it like more common to say you love your friends, you love your family or other people, or is it more rare like Japanese culture? Let us know, and don't forget to follow us on other platforms like Instagram. I think that's the only platform that we have, right? Oh, we have a Twitter, right?
Yeah, we need to start doing stuff.
We haven't really posted on
we
there. We
promise to start doing stuff with all of those.
Yeah.
Yes, it's going to happen. And let us know in the comments what you'd like to see on our Instagram or our Twitter, and whether you'd like us to call you bestie. So
I'm gonna struggle with that one, but if enough people say call me bestie, all right, we'll give the people what they want.
I can't
imagine
make sure to
follow Ruri on
calling
Instagram as well.
bestie. Oh yeah. Follow me.
Yeah, because as soon as you follow her, then you become her bestie.
No.
So
No, Izzy. No, Izzy. Not, not as soon as you follow me. As soon as you respond to my Q&As. Q&As are important. Take part.
Okay, so follow Ruri and respond to her Q&A, and then you'll be besties.
Of course. See you guys. Bye.
Bye. Wow.